Welcome back to Opening Statements, and now to our deep dive on the latest developments in the Delphi murders. We want to spotlight the family behind this tragedy, because those beautiful young girls are what this case is all about. Abby Williams and Libby German, and their deaths have rocked that small community in Indiana where they were living. And their respective families have been coping with the media attention in different ways. Libby's family, for instance, has been really leaning in, very publicly calling for justice, including her older sister, who dropped the girls off that day.
Libby would always ask me to take her to places like, can we go to McDonald's, or can we go to Lafayette and go to see a movie? And it seemed like I was always saying no because I didn't want to go all the way to Lafayette, or I didn't have money to pay for it. So, yeah, this time I decided I'd said no enough that, like, I could handle taking her this time.
Do you regret that?
Yeah, sometimes I wish I would have been a mean sister and just said no.
We want to welcome in a very special guest. She was in that car interviewing Libby German's sister, and she's in the studio this morning. Investigative journalist and the author of the book Down the Hill, Susan Hendricks, is here. Susan, good morning. Wonderful to see you.
Good morning to you, Julie. Looking back at that, because that was 2019, and just how young Kelsey was. I mean, thrust into this, as you know, in 2017, just 18 years old. So all of a sudden, she's the advocate for her sister, Abby and Libby, and also living with the guilt, thinking, what if, I wish I could have done something different that day. Obviously, none of this being her fault. She has since been fighting for other families as well.
Right. She's been a tremendous advocate. I mean, she deserves an advocacy award. She really does.
Absolutely.
And the family, they've been very open with you. Tell us, how do they feel now? This is kind of a weird stage because we're not at trial. We're kind of in limbo, right? And now with this latest announcement about the defense motions, what, if anything, are they sharing about how they feel?
Well, of course, as you know, for close to 6 years, that was the goal. Find the person on the bridge, find the person that did this. Again, Richard Allen, innocent till proven guilty. But now that someone is in custody, I remember looking at Becky, it was October 31st, Halloween, the day of the presser. And she looked a little bit defeated, and I asked her about that, and she said, well, I don't know what my purpose is anymore. It was really to advocate, to fight, to find this person. Now that someone's in custody, I don't feel like I have purpose. It has to shift. That's when Mike, her husband, Libby's grandfather, said, look, our purpose now is that trial in terms of helping in any way that we can and doing what we can. Because as you heard, the prosecutor, Nick McClelland, even saying, look, there could be other actors involved. So the family is shifting to that mode. But retired cold case investigator Paul Holes has said to me and the family several times, look, this is not an easy process. And this was before, Julie, someone was in custody, saying once it does go to trial, it's not easy for anybody, and get ready for that. So I believe that the family is getting ready. Obviously, they want to be there to see this through, but of course, excruciating for both families.
You're absolutely right, Susan. It is excruciatingly painful. It never gets any easier. Even when the case is closed, you never get that closure in your heart.
Yeah.
Legally it might be done, but it's never done in your mind and your heart.
That's a good point.
It's just awful.
That's a good point, because Becky did say to me, Susan, I don't really know what justice looks like. It's not justice for Abby and Libby because they'll never come back. Right. That would be justice if they could be here. But she did say, look, I'm glad if it is this person that he can't do it to someone else, because that was the biggest fear. Close to 6 years, no one in custody. If someone did that, is capable of doing that, Doug Carter has said to me in the past, then they're going to do it again. We don't know when.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
That really is. And Susan, you dug in so much. I did a beautiful job throughout the progression of this case. Really at the inception, you were all over this. You become one of the leading voices on it. And the family members of the German family really trust you. You become like a friend to them, which is such a testament to the person that you are, in addition to being such a fine journalist. We know that the Williams family just isn't as comfortable with the media, which is understandable. Right. Certainly can't blame them. Tell us what it's been like. You've certainly tried to communicate with them. What have those efforts been?
And I have spoken to Diane, Abby's grandmother, and Eric. several times. And early on, I believe it was maybe March 7th, where Mike Patty got up first time and saying, "Hi, I'm Mike Patty, I'm Libby's grandfather, and please respect Abby's family." And he read kind of a message from them that said, look, we respect Libby's family, but this is how we're getting through this. As you know, it's different for everyone. There's people out there who say, hey, this makes me feel like I'm doing something. Get out in front of it, hand out the flyers. For others, not so. And they understood that early on, as anyone would understand it, of course.
Right, Susan. We've got another clip we want to play. This is from your interview with Kelsey, who's, of course, Libby's sister, dropped the girls off at the trail on that dreadful day.
How long after you dropped them off did someone call you and say, we can't find them?
I think it would have been 2.5 hours later is when I got the call from my grandma.
You probably thought it was no big deal, that nothing was wrong, or did you immediately start to worry?
I figured it was just something like I forgot to do the dishes or something along those lines, or maybe she was trying to see where I was. I never would have imagined it was her calling to tell me my sister was missing.
Susan, take us back. At what point in time was that interview, and contrast it with now, please, where we've got a gag order in place?
So much has happened since that interview, since that car ride, and Kelsey was nice enough to take me to where she went that day in dropping off Abby and Libby. But she has since had a little baby girl, which is exciting, this August. And Becky said to me, you know, she's just so sweet. She sleeps through the night. So talk about joy to their lives. And I remember speaking to Kelsey. She was planning her wedding, getting ready to get married, and said to me, you know, I asked her about kids, and it was a conversation around dinner table with her family. And she just said, I don't know, I have to find. Her advocacy of finding the person that did this came before. I guess she put her life on hold. And now that someone is in custody, she feels like it's okay to be okay now. I know Libby would want me to be happy and keep moving on. But she does still feel guilt, like especially the milestones. When Libby was supposed to be a senior in high school, the families go through that. This would have been this for her. She would have been this age. So, of course, now the new stage, the trial, we'll see what happens, but they have each other. They're a unit. Both families really are, and they lean on each other. And Paul Hull's saying, look, they're going to need it now.
You're right, Susan. Paul is right. And every good wish to them as they continue going through this painful process. And I know that they've been able to get some comfort in knowing that people care. Your book has brought them a lot of comfort, I know. Tell us about Kelsey and reaction to your writing.
I asked her to write the foreword because I wanted her blessing in terms of this book, and I wanted her to know it was from the perspective from what I saw with both families, more so than even what was going on during the long investigation. I do discuss that as well, but really I wanted it to be from the perspective of the families and what they go through with this investigation. In the beginning, of course, the shock, and then year after year, no one in custody. And there it is. I sent the book to Kelsey, and that's her baby's crib.
Oh, with her baby's crib. Oh, my gosh.
And she just said, you know, what I appreciated, she said, thank you for keeping my sister alive, to talk about her. So her pictures are in here, what she was like, how she was silly and funny, and Abby as well. I wanted to make sure that the girls were not overlooked in all of this, because that can happen. A lot of trials that we have covered at HLN, the victims are discussed, but they're certainly not at the top of the story.
Thank you for saying that, Susan. You're absolutely right. It's something that I've always tried to be constantly mindful of at Court TV, because you're right, it's very easy to get lost in the process. Trials can be exciting, there's so much evidence and other matters that come up. But you're right, at the heart of this are two beautiful people who deserve to live. And so keeping them at the center of it has to be very, very comforting to the family members. And I'm assuming that the Williams family felt the same way. Did they share that same sentiment?
They did, and what I remember Diane saying to me, which stuck out, was how close they got with the Abby and Libby Memorial Park that they built. They all came together and helped build that. They had volunteers there, donations. That, of course, is Anna, Abby's mom there, and her grandfather. That's Mike Patty. So they came together and said, you know what? We're not going to talk about what could have been. We're going to talk about what will be. This park in their memory, an amphitheater, fields, kids having fun, and remembering Abby and Libby, which is key.
Oh, that is fantastic to hear. Susan Hendricks, you are going to be continuing this conversation at CrimeCon in just a couple of days. Would you tell everybody, please, the panels that you're moderating
Yes.
and what you're going to be sharing?
So Becky will be there with me alongside with Tara. That's Libby's aunt. But they did make sure, and
This
that's
was you last year, right,
yes,
Susan?
that's Austin. So
that was Austin.
2
Okay.
years ago.
I know you were at CrimeCon presenting last year on this too,
Exactly.
right?
That
Yes.
was in Las Vegas. Paul was up on stage with us and just giving information, investigative insights into this, which I believe really helped the family. But of course, you know, there's a gag order. So they did check, of course, with the judge saying, is this okay? And I will not be discussing the case. It's just about Abby and Libby and keeping the memory alive while I'm there.
You know what, Susan, people might prefer that. I think a lot of people would, because we'll get to the evidence, we'll get to the trial eventually, we'll all see it together. Hopefully the cameras will be allowed in the court, you know, per the defense request. But you're right, to just learn more about these young girls, you know, I'd love to see more pictures and things and hear more stories about them.
Because we only see that one dimension on the wanted picture. And that's a lot of what we see with Abby and Libby, but there was so much more. And I just went on Libby's Facebook page, which is now a memorial page, and just the tiny jokes and how caring she was and putting up pictures of all her friends. You really got to know her spirit and who she was.
Definitely. Susan Hendricks, we could talk to you all day about this. I hope we can continue the, thank you so much. Wonderful to see you too. We'll continue this on opening statements as the trial progresses. I'll look forward to seeing you in a couple days in Orlando this year.
I'll see you there.
At CrimeCon, yes, it was wonderful seeing you last year. You did a great panel. I know you'll do the same again. Susan Hendricks,
Julie.
thank you kindly. And your book, Down the Hill, which you show everybody, available for purchase.
And again, Kelsey wrote the foreword, which is very touching. It's about what she has gone through and really had to be the pillar of strength for her sister.
It is a great book. You've done a tremendous job sharing their stories. Susan Hendricks, thank you.
Thank you.
Kindly.